Hello and welcome into the pre-show that we have here at Computer America. This is for the lucky few of you who have managed to find our little hideout here on Google Hangouts. And again, we are planning on doing some other things with YouTube Live and what have you. But for now, just want to let you know that we had some last-minute schedule confirmations, and we have a really good show for you today. As we have in hour one, Pure Grown Diamonds. That's gonna be a lot of fun to talk to. And in hour two, we have MobileTrust, which they make very secure cybersecurity software for obviously mobile devices and phones. And yeah, we'll look forward to having them both on. And we have about 10 seconds before the show actually starts. But hopefully, all of you sit back, relax, and enjoy 2 hours of the Computer America show.
Your show will go live in 5 seconds. Four, three, two, one.
Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running national radio talk. Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running national radio talk show on computers. Computer America. Hosted by national columnist Craig Crossman. Look for Craig's weekly column in your favorite newspaper. This show is being beamed nationwide at computeramerica.com. Keep it here for technology news, computer products, guest interviews, and your phone calls. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America show. It is the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. We are heard around the world and coast to coast. And yeah, I'm your host, Ben Crossman. And I know it's still a very, very tentative adjustment period as Craig Crossman is still out from his illness. And of course, we wish him the best. And I've seen him lately looking better every single day. And hopefully, we can get him back on before you know it. But in the meantime, again, I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and we have a really, really good show for you, for everyone out there today. And just some announcements to get out of the way. That, I know that Sandy Berger, she was supposed to make it here on Wednesday. If you tuned in then, you heard a repeat of Darius Derek-Shani. He is our graphics correspondent, and that was a really good show, and we enjoyed putting that back on for you guys. But yeah, Sandy Berger had another emergency. They're popping everywhere up lately. They're popping up everywhere lately. But at any rate, yeah, she's going to be back here with us next month at her regular slot. And then Marcel Gagne was supposed to be here with us yesterday, but unfortunately, again, schedule conflicts. So we had to do a repeat then. But I promise, if you are listening to this today, this is not a repeat. This is not a best of. This is a live show. So, and we like putting those on because we like, we like interacting with the audience and all that good stuff. And again, it's just going to be a really fun time. So for any of you newcomers out there, welcome into the Computer America show. Head on over to computeramerica.com, and over there you will find everything from archives, so past shows, past guests, any kind of content that we do here at Computer America can be found over at computeramerica.com. And since it is Friday, I guess we should also say this is that we will have a social media winner of the week. And that is brought to everyone by our friends over at Logitech. They give us, they have a mountain of prizes that they have for us, and just for being, such lovely, lovely listeners and going out and finding us on social media in any capacity, be it YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, wherever you find Computer America, go there, and you'll be entered to win a prize from, again, Logitech. I believe we're still giving away the M535 mouse, but that is soon due for an update. So if you've already won, then keep your ears out because we're going to refresh the prizes. And of course, that means that we are going to refresh who can win and all that wonderful, wonderful stuff. Okay, so let's see. With that said, I think that is just about it for the announcements. Hopefully, everyone out there is ready for a good long weekend. Being Friday, it's it's a little hectic over here, but sticking here with Computer America, if you're on the East Coast, we're going to carry you out through the end of the workday. Um, and yeah, I probably have a few more things, and hopefully, we have some time for computer and technology news. Be able to squeeze it in here somewhere, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And in the meantime, though, I think we should just get to our first hour guest, who was very, very gracious and being shifted around at the last minute. But I think this interview is going to be a lot of fun because while not our usual not our usual fare of keyboard manufacturers or motherboard manufacturers or someone who made the latest greatest app or what have you, this is still very technical, very technology oriented, and I think it's going to be something that's going forward is really going to change an industry in general, and really an industry that if you have been paying attention to the last 20, 30, 40 years in terms of the jewelry industry and diamonds specifically, an industry in desperate need of change because there are a lot of things wrong with the current system. And again, thanks to technology, things have a way to improve. And of course, joining us on the show, we have a company called Pure Grown Diamonds. And it's exactly what it sounds like. They make diamonds, but they make them in a laboratory setting and not and it's very, very hard to find any kind of ethical lapses you can inside a lab as opposed to traditional diamonds. So joining us today is a gentleman called TJ Walker, and he is the spokesperson for Pure Grown Diamonds. And yeah, we really look forward to speaking with him. So, yeah, without further ado, TJ, welcome onto the Computer America Show. There we go.
Thanks. Great to be with you.
Yeah, our pleasure, our pleasure. And and like I said, we've heard like I actually remember kind of sitting, like I'm sure I was somewhere seventh, eighth grade, or like you probably know better than I would, but the first time that scientists created a diamond in a laboratory, that was big news when that first happened. But of course, back then it was super, super expensive, super, super experimental. Like some scientists in a university somewhere created it. But here you are, and here you are on our program talking about how a company can now enter an industry where I assume that you are competitive with just picking them up out of the ground. So I mean, where did growing diamonds in laboratory start, and how has Pure Grown Diamonds decided that this is the right time and this is something that we want to bring to market?
The technology has been around for a while. Back in the 1940s, General Electric created the technology, and it was used for creating industrial strength diamonds. It's only been in the last handful of years that the technology has been perfected to the point where it is jewelry grade diamonds. And at Pure Grown, we're very happy about the fact that we now only sell type 2A diamonds. That's the highest quality of diamonds. You think of like an Elizabeth Taylor diamond, the diamonds most well known in pop culture and on movie stars. Those are the type 2A diamonds. Those are the most beautiful ones. And now technology can create these. It's a fascinating technology story because technology can't create everything. You can't necessarily create a tree just with technology or a 100-foot oak with technology. But
Right.
with diamonds, you can. It's important for people to realize these are, in fact, genuine diamonds. It's not like what you might think of as other substitutes in the past.
Right. Yeah. This is not a costume diamond. This is not just something that you would put in place of a diamond. Uh, I mean, like how far accurate do pure grown diamonds actually get? Like down to the molecular level, or is it just they're made out of carbon and they
Yeah,
are as hard as
no, it,
diamonds?
at the atomic level, these are identical to a mined diamond. Type 2A lab grown diamonds are 99.95% pure carbon, 99.9% devoid of nitrogen. So this is exactly what you're going to find in in a mined diamond. There are some critical differences, however.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, the lab grown diamonds are eco grown. So you don't have all the problems with a traditional mine, digging up the dirt, the air pollution associated with the water. It's a tremendous amount of water that's used because the technology of mining is just inherently messy and takes
Yeah.
a lot of energy. So don't take my word for it. The international consulting firm Frost and Sullivan did an analysis, and they found that mine diamonds take 7 times the environmental impact compared with lab grown diamonds. So they're much worse for the environment. Lab grown diamonds are much better. The other big issue and big area of difference
Hmm.
is that lab grown diamonds are socially sustainable. You don't have the problem with all the conflict diamonds, the blood diamonds. The problem with mined diamonds is you're typically getting these from countries that are involved with civil wars, dictators, abuses of workers. In a place like the Philippines, for example, Amnesty International, the international rights organization, has documented that children as young as 11
Mm.
are forced to dive into these water pits some 60, 70 feet down, often with just a little tube in their mouth, muddy water, and they die from this. It's dangerous work. You don't have any of those problems with lab grown diamonds because they are created in a lab in a safe environment for the workers. The third really big difference between the lab grown diamonds and the mine diamonds is the lab grown diamonds are less expensive. They're typically 30 to 40% less expensive.
Wow.
So that means if one of your listeners were to get a typical 1 carat diamond, mine diamond for say $5,000, it would be more like $3,000 with a lab grown diamond. So that's a couple $1,000s that you could use for things like honeymoons, down payments on cars, homes, weddings. Because typically, when someone is getting a really nice diamond to commemorate an important event in life, like an engagement or marriage, they usually have a lot of other big expenses going on in their life.
Hmm.
So the extra money can come in handy.
I mean, you have to admit, TJ, that and this is kind of going back to your second point about really displacing an industry that is very corrupt. Corrupt would be kind of a fair assessment. That's wherever these diamonds are found, usually in places that are kind of lower socioeconomic, and Philippines and Africa and what have you. Corruption obviously takes charge. There's a lot of money in diamonds. Obviously, diamonds are still very, very desired in terms of jewelry, and being able to displace an industry like that with something that like you said, is cheaper in a lot of ways and much less environmental impact. I mean, that has to feel good, as a as a provider of these diamonds, that you're, you know, I don't want to say that you're collapsing the industry, but you are taking the industry, I think, in a new direction. That's, hey, these diamonds don't have to be, so socially taboo. They can just be really, really nice looking jewelry, or really, really nice looking diamonds. And, there's no stigma attached to them. I'm like, that has to feel good on some level.
Well, it does feel good for those of us who are a part of the Pure Grown family, but it also feels good, even more important, to our customers because we found increasingly with millennials, younger people, they don't want to commemorate a brand new relationship or a new marriage or an important life event and symbolize love with something that actually symbolizes injury, harm to the environment, harm to kids working. It's contradictory.
Right.
It's at odds. And so that is the beauty of the lab grown diamond. And in fact, why a lot of people, millennials especially, actually prefer it over the mined diamond. Because if you want to symbolize something new that is about love, why not actually buy something that's new that never harmed anybody or harmed the environment? So that's why a lot of people, not just Hollywood celebrities, but young people are drawn to the lab grown diamond story because it is a compelling story. And diamonds are a part of our story of life. It's a part of our story about how we're trying to connect to someone if we are giving it as a present.
Right. Absolutely. And we're going to go more into each one of those points, I think, a little bit later in the show. But again, being Computer America, and we're really into the technology, let's talk a little bit about the process that you said has been perfected over the last couple of years. Where are you actually making these things? Because
These are
obviously, yeah. Go
made
ahead.
These are made in a laboratory in Singapore where the technology was created. And here's the process. You start with a diamond seed of pure carbon. It is grown in a greenhouse, and it typically takes 9 to 12 weeks to grow. You then cut the diamond just as you would a mined diamond. You polish it just as you would a mined diamond. You mount it, you sell it, and the customer can get it. It really takes about 9 months from the concept until someone is wearing it. So think of it this way: if because people often ask, well, does it look the same? You know, can you tell? Think of it this way: if someone gave you a dozen red roses, could you tell if they had been grown outside in someone's garden or in a greenhouse? You probably couldn't tell. You probably wouldn't care as long as they're beautiful and they look the same and smell the same. Well, that's really where we are with the lab-grown diamonds. Is you can't tell by looking at them if it's any different from a mined diamond because there is no difference. And you can look at it under a loupe. You can take it to a jeweler. They cannot tell the difference. Now, because we are so proud of our product, we want people to know that they are getting a lab-grown diamond. So we actually inscribe on the girdle of the diamond. That's just a fancy word for that sort of line where it's one angle goes into another.
Right.
At the top, we inscribe the letter LG for lab grown and then identification numbers on it. Now, I'll be honest with you. When I looked at the diamonds under one of those loupe magnifying glasses, I still can't see it. But any reputable gemologist or jewelry store owner, they would be able to see it. So they could tell you exactly what you're getting. So it's a nice way of identifying it. But
Right. Is that a way to identify, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't be proud of your product, because again, everyone can go head out to puregrowndiamonds.com and see, you have diamonds in many, many different colors and many, many different settings. I mean, they are really, really, hey, let's face it, they're diamonds. They're always amazing to look at. But I mean, inscribing them, is there any kind of regulation that says that, because the diamond industry is a pretty big industry, and if you have a technology like this, you could certainly, I don't want to say destroy the value of diamonds by overproducing. You said 9 months. That's still no easy feat. It's not like you're pumping these things out a week at a time. But like, is there any kind of regulation that says that a lab grown diamond has to mark itself as a lab grown diamond to differentiate itself from a mined diamond?
the differentiation is you can't call something a genuine diamond if it is some kind of synthetic or different.
See, I don't agree with that.
You can't do that. You can't call it a genuine diamond. We can call this a genuine diamond because it is, in fact, a genuine diamond.
Right.
It is at an atomic level the very same thing. So you can't be misleading according to the Federal Trade Commission. So that's why we are 100% clear on what it is, how it's created, and put a label on it so you know not just what it is, but that it's yours, because each one has a serial number on it.
For sure.
And we think that's an attraction for a lot of customers. You mentioned color. They do come in a lot of colors, including fancy pink, bright yellow, colorless, or white. They come in different shapes. You can get it in a brilliant cut, an emerald cut, princess cut, and others.
Right. Yeah. And by the way, just real quick, I totally don't agree. I've not agreed with the FCC and the FTC quite a bit, but to not call this thing a genuine diamond, I mean, is just wrong on a scientific level, which I think is the greatest atrocity. But no, they got to do what they got to do. And
But let me address your other issues, because you asked a question about, could this be disruptive
right.
of markets? A couple of factors. This is a very expensive technology. It's not like you can just go to Amazon and buy a digital printer and start printing these yourself at home. It's extraordinarily complex and
Right.
expensive, number one. Number two, The demand for diamonds around the world has never been larger. You have societies like China and India where hundreds of millions of people are entering the middle class. What do they want? They want the very same things that middle class Americans have, and those include things like diamond engagement rings. So the demand is only going up around the world. So I don't think anyone's going out of business, regardless of whether they are mined or lab grown diamonds. The final factor is a lot of the mined diamonds are coming from mines that are reaching mature state. So they're having to dig deeper, they're not quite as plentiful, and it's going to be just more expensive for them to get those because a lot of the mines are older mines.
Right. Yeah. And honestly, if there was any time for a technology as such as yourself to come out and give you an alternative to a more expensively mined diamond, now would be the time, just like you said, because the demand does seem to be so high. And again, look at these things. I mean, they look like diamonds because they are diamonds, and they really do look nice. And again, this is going to be like another personal aside. I noticed this with many of the jewelers that kind of advertise here in the U.S. Um, and again, this doesn't have anything to do with PureGrown diamonds, but you seem to know your stuff. Um, Chocolate diamonds. That always seemed like lower grade diamonds that they gave it a fancy name and we're trying to push those. Like, are chocolate diamonds like really a thing, or like brown diamonds? Let's not put a brand name on that. Brown diamonds. Like I notice here that you have pink and yellow and of course clear, but you don't have brown. Like does brown just mean there are more impurities and therefore less desirable?
Not necessarily, and desire is in the eye of the beholder. There are certain colors that can go in and out of fashion. It really is what people want. We're talking about, at some level, items of fashion, and certain styles, certain cuts, certain colors can go in and out of style. But what we have seen now for decades and within some parts of society, hundreds of years, is people do love diamonds. They are seen as important tokens and symbols of love and permanence, and that doesn't seem to be going away. You mentioned what you see in other jewelry stores. It's important to note when you go to a jewelry store, they're not mining the diamonds or making the diamonds themselves. They are distributing them. They're
Mm-hmm.
getting them from other places, and that's their job. They want to satisfy you, the customer. So if you want a lab grown diamond, you can get it from your local jewelry store.
Oh,
Now, if you want to know what stores in your area carry lab grown diamonds, you can find out by going to puregrowndiamonds.com. That's three w's.puregrowndiamonds.com, and type in your zip code, and you can find out where a store near you carries them. But you can also, if you have a relationship with an existing jeweler, just ask them to get it for you, and they can get it for you. They're in the business of satisfying their customers and helping their customers with the jewelry they want. So
right.
they can easily get it for you.
Right, absolutely. And before we get into some of some of the things like sustainability and the eco consciousness, really get into those. Let's talk about something fun, and that is these lab grown diamonds. Um, do you do custom orders? Like, if someone said, "I want one that makes the Hope Diamond look like a toy." I mean, like how big or how custom can you really make these diamonds, or do you only offer them in like you said, certain cuts and certain colors?
I know some of your listeners are thinking, wow, this could be great. I could just plug a few buttons on the microwave and get a 50 carat diamond.
I'd be lying if I
Admittedly, it's
said
not
I didn't
quite
feel
that
that way.
simple. It's not quite that simple. Plus, that would really weigh your arms out walking. So, where we are selling the most is in the 1 to 2 carat range. There is some variability in this. It's not just a matter of pushing a few buttons on a microwave and getting exactly what you want, because this is a crystallization process. They are growing with natural crystallization, so there are inclusions, just as you would have with mine diamonds, and it's not It's not as precise of just putting in things exactly one way and it comes out exactly the other way. So there is still an element of art and luck to this, but the result is beautiful diamonds. But no, you can't get the 50 carat diamond.
Okay. Well, uh, maybe in the future you'll have those magic 3D printers that can just 3D print the diamonds. But for now, we
That's the exciting thing about technology is you never really know about the future. What seems crazy in one era becomes commonplace. I mean, if you, I grew up in the 70s. I was born in '62. I grew up in the '70s. If
mhm.
you told me when I was 16 years old, TJ, when you grow up, you're going to have at your fingertips a couple million books. You'll be able to watch every movie you want at any time of day or night. You'll be able to watch any TV show at your fingertips. You'll have instant access to every newspaper and news source in the world.
Sounds
I would
impossible.
think,
Yeah.
I would think, great, I'm going to be Thomas Edison, and I'll somehow be the greatest inventor of the world, and I'll become a billionaire. Well, I didn't become a billionaire or Thomas Edison. It turns out you don't need to be a billionaire if you are a lower middle class American. You have access to all of those things now. In fact, it's completely unremarkable to even mention that. But in my own lifetime, that was considered an impossible feat. And in fact, the wealthiest of the wealthy did not have those amenities or access to those resources.
Right, and exactly what you're saying is what we've seen in other industries, where and technology specifically, where we talk about car technology and things like that. I mean, we just did a story, I think it was like last month or 2 months ago, that every car coming off of the Ford line, every single car is going to have electronic braking assist and and lane guidance systems in them, and that was only available in like the 50, 60, 70, $80,000 cars 10 years ago. 10 years later, it comes standard in almost every single car. So just like technology, what was once inaccessible and very expensive, give it a decade, give it 5 years, it's going to be attainable. And do you see that with with pure grown diamonds, that you're only going to refine the process and the technology is only going to get better?
I think I'm on pretty safe ground saying that technology will only get better, not only in this field, but almost every field. So
Oh yeah.
technology changes. What really doesn't change is people falling in love, people wanting to express love with presents, with jewelry, with things that will be seen as lasting not just a lifetime, but for many lifetimes. I mean, people hand down jewelry from one generation to the next. My sister has my mother's wedding ring, and it may be handed down to additional generations. So some things are seen as more permanent. Some presents you get, flowers you get, they may be beautiful. You're going to throw them away in 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
I've got lawn furniture out at my pool right now. I loved it when I got it 2 years ago. Now my wife wants to throw it away and get new stuff. It's not seen as permanent. But she's not going to throw away her diamond ring. Now, I purchased hers before I was working with and involved with PureGrown. So
Mm-hmm.
she has a mine diamond, but she's not going to be throwing it away anytime soon. I think people are always looking for certain sentimental elements that all have sentimental value, but real value and intrinsic value. And diamonds are going to be a part of that. So there's only going to be increased demand.
And again, I completely agree with that. And of course, again, head on over to puregrowndiamonds.com, and you'll see that hey, diamonds really are timeless. It's you know people wanted them 50, 100,000 years ago. People are going to want them for another 1,000 years. It's just one of those things. But hopefully, just like you said, the pure grown diamonds being 40 to 60% cheaper, hopefully everyone can get the diamond that they want, and it's not just something that is just horrible if you lose, and very, very expensive to to get into. Um, all right, so yeah, we TJ, we have about a minute before we have to hit our first break. Let's just touch lately on the on the sustainable part of this. You mentioned that you grow a piece of carbon. Real quick, can you kind of describe like where the carbon comes from and why it's so unique, other than just a piece of charcoal?
Well, it's not particularly unique. It is just a pure state of carbon known as a diamond seed, and that is not particularly expensive. It's the whole process and the time it takes to grow it, and it's put in to what is essentially a greenhouse, and it's allowed to grow
Mm-hmm.
through the crystallization process. And that's what you never quite know. It's like if you're freezing water and you're creating a crystal, you never really know.
Right.
Snowflakes look different. It's a crystallization process.
Right. And TJ, real quick, the music means we have to take a break. We're gonna take about 3-minute breaks, folks, and we'll be right back again with TJ and Pure Grown Diamond. Stay tuned.
Sometimes disaster strikes. Data can be lost due to many different reasons: accidental reformatting, power spikes, virus attacks. Zero Assumption Recovery provides a suite of highly effective and thorough data recovery software for Windows operating systems. ZA is suitable for home users and small businesses who need a powerful data recovery solution for Windows and Linux file systems.
Go to z-a-recovery.com.
Sometimes disaster strikes. Data can be lost due to many different reasons: accidental reformatting, power spikes, virus attacks. Zero Assumption Recovery provides a suite of highly effective and thorough data recovery software for Windows operating systems. ZA is suitable for home users and small businesses who need a powerful data recovery solution for Windows and Linux file systems.
Go to z-a-recovery.com.
Looking for a best friend? Brother Wolf Animal Rescue has your best friend waiting just for you. The mission of Brother Wolf Animal Rescue is to help build a sustainable, no-kill community where no dogs or cats are ever killed for population control, where true euthanasia is reserved only for animals who are irremediably suffering or for animals who are truly a threat to society and with no hope of rehabilitation. Brother Wolf staff and volunteers go door to door, neighborhood by neighborhood, to educate citizens about local resources available for at-risk pets and to help their families connect with those resources. Brother Wolf's community-based approach to no kill helps keep family pets healthy, happy, and in their homes and out of the local shelter system in the first place. For more information or to make a tax-deductible donation to this wonderful 501c3 organization, visit their website at www.bwar.org. Help to realize Brother Wolf's vision when no animal is euthanized for lack of a home.
Who's a good boy?
I'm Gary Kay at Tech 50 Plus for Computer America, and I'm having a senior moment. Self-driving taxis in Singapore. Uber bringing self-driving Volvos to Pittsburgh. Ford Motors announces plans for a fleet of self-driving cars without steering wheels or gas pedals to hit the road by 2021. Yes, the age of the self-driving car is upon us. The 50-plus generation has mixed feelings. Some think they have better judgment than a machine. Others are just technophobic. But many understand that as we age and lose our reflexes and our eyesight, the self-driving car may be the best way to retain our mobility and our independence. Self-driving cars will be here. Don't oppose it, embrace it. But they won't come overnight. And for those of us who still enjoy getting behind the wheel of a fun sports car, don't worry, you won't be an endangered species for years to come. That's my senior moment. I'm Gary Kay at Tech 50 Plus for Computer America.
And thank you, Mr. Gary K, for that for that segment. And again, we're gonna be switching those up. And even I had a lovely opportunity to talk to um, oh wow. He does our newspaper bulletin review. Marty Winston. He's going to be producing some alternative segments. He for everyone out there who does not know, he is actually out there building a connected home. In all things in all things connected. As in, he calls like the home, like the 40 home or something like that. It's going to be what homes look like in 40 years, where you can control your sprinklers, your lights, your AC, just every appliance, all of it from one tablet. I mean, he's decking out his new home, and he's going to do a segment about that, and we're going to hear a lot about that. So look forward to hearing about that. But here in the first hour, we are going to finish out the segment here with a company again called Pure Grown Diamonds, puregrowndiamonds.com. And Mr. TJ Walker was kind enough to jump in here last minute notice to talk about just everything to do with what makes a lab grown diamond so so much different than just a regular diamond, and yet what makes it so similar as well, I think is what we're finding talking about this. So DJ, let's see. I believe we, I kind of had to cut you off there, but you mentioned that the base material. I mean, diamonds. For those of you who may have slept through sixth grade geology, diamonds are formed way down in the earth. Way down in the mantle, I believe. And I'll be honest, I probably slept too, but diamonds, mantle, a lot of heat, a lot of pressure. I mean, it's extreme conditions, and then they're found, and then of course through volcanoes, through earthquakes, through just seismic, events. They are forced out of the mantle and into the ground. And just like you said, mines have to be built. Very rarely are they just on the ground that you just walk over and pick them up, but you have to dig down, far down, and dig these diamonds out of the ground. Um, how do you replicate such uh, I think that's what you're about to start getting into. How do you replicate such strange circumstances with what you said was a diamond seed and just a hunk of pure carbon? I mean, you don't exactly have access to the mantle of the earth.
So it's put in a what we call a greenhouse, and in some ways it's almost like a microwave. And there is a two gem quality diamond creation process involves. There's high pressure, high temperature. We call it HPHT, and there's chemical vapor deposition. We call it CVD. It's in a tight atom, layer by layer, recreating the natural process. Now, a lot of people say, well, gosh, diamonds took millions of years to create. How can you do it in just a few months?
Right.
Well, the thing is, we don't really know how long it took for mine diamonds to be created. We know that they were often underground for millions of years, but we don't know how long the actual creation process was. It may be that they happened very quickly after seismic activity or volcanic activity, but that activity happened millions of years ago.
Definitely. And again, it seems like science fiction to again create a lab, or I'm sorry, create a diamond in a lab, but here you are obviously doing it. And so yeah, so it's obviously very sustainable, like you said, eco-conscious. I believe like one of the large problems with creating, I know this was a problem with gold, um, creating gold in a laboratory, but maybe even diamonds. Um, Eco-conscious wise, I mean, does it take a lot of energy, or is it just you have, the systems in place that, per
It
diamond,
takes
you
it
really not,
takes
yeah,
it takes dramatically less energy than mine diamonds. I mean, obviously you have to have something to turn the lights on and to run the machines, but
right,
independent analysis from the international consulting firm Frost and Sullivan has estimated that it's 7 times less the energy and environmental impact of mine diamonds. Because with mine diamonds, you have to have all the energy for the bulldozers, the drills, pushing all the water down in, bringing it out, and often going through 10 different middlemen. With the lab grown diamonds, we control it all in one place. So it can go right from our lab
mm-hmm,
and then cut and polished right to your ring. So it's not going through all these different elaborate supply chains and all the energy it takes there. So if you are concerned about the planet and the earth, then a lab grown diamond is probably a great option for you, because frankly, a lot of people, especially younger people who view themselves as environmentally conscious, have kind of looked down their noses at diamonds in the last decade or so,
well, you
before lab grown diamonds were an option, because they thought of it as something that was old school, bad for the environment, bad for people.
well, I think what you said a little bit earlier about, imagine when you're 16 saying you could have access to, all the literature and all the movies and all the media. And I think we live in a day and age where obviously you do. And, it's much harder to ignore where things come from. It's much harder to ignore when you say something is, a diamond. It's not just a diamond, but you can go online and look up where do diamonds come from, and you get all the controversy and all. Like, it's much harder to be naive of just the infrastructure behind what you're doing. So
And if you want to avoid the controversy, again, that's the beauty of a lab-grown diamond. You
definitely,
know what you're getting. The people were paid fairly. Nobody had their arm hacked off in the creation or the movement of a lab-grown diamond. And unfortunately, that is the situation with so many mined diamonds that are unfortunately a part of rebel wars, civil wars, propping up dictators, used to supply arms
yeah.
to dictators. So there's just a lot of problems with how mine diamonds go from where they are to someone's finger, and you don't have that with the lab-grown diamonds.
Okay, now I'm gonna try to stump you here, and good luck. But um, some people see diamonds as, yeah, and I think we've covered, if you want to commemorate an event, if you want to, have something that is just going to, be stunning, and of course, cost a fraction of the price. But some people see diamonds as a form of investment. They see, they buy jewelry, they buy diamonds, cut, and they'll save them and sell them at another time. Um, Pure grown diamonds. I mean, you guys aren't like, unless there's some kind of going out of business sale, and you stop making lab grown diamonds, which I think I think that Pandora's box has been opened in that regard, that we're never going to, if it's not pure grown diamonds, it's going to be making diamonds in a laboratory for the rest of the time. Um, are pure grown diamonds, like, are they going to go down in value because you guys keep making them, or do you feel that they are going to retain their value just because they are diamonds, and like you said, the demand is just ever greater for diamonds of any sort?
Well, first of all, the price of any commodity, gold, silver, copper, gemstones,
Mm-hmm.
can go up or down. So any guest you have on who states with absolute authority that they know the price of a particular commodity is categorically going up, be careful. You're likely to have your audience flim-flam.
Right.
So with that big caveat, let me also remind people I'm not an investment advisor.
Oh, neither
I'm
are
not a
we. So
registered
go ahead.
investment advisor. I don't want to give investment advice. You ask me my own personal opinion. My opinion is the only reason you should buy a diamond is because you want a diamond and you want to have it either on your own wrist or neck or finger, or you want to give it to someone. I think that is the reason to buy a diamond. And if you have other investment questions, hire Warren Buffett, talk to an investment advisor, go to an index fund if you want. But I wouldn't buy any jewelry just because I thought it was going to go up in value. That's me. Your listeners may have a different opinion, but I don't want to.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not going to be one of these spokespersons that says, "Oh yes, you can't lose," and buy, and it's always that's just utter nonsense. What I can tell you is a genuine diamond, and if you want to commemorate some important life event with a genuine diamond, either for yourself or for a loved one, and you want something beautiful, and you want something that is genuine and is less expensive than a mined version of the same thing, and that causes a lot less damage to the environment and to people, a lab-grown diamond is a great way to spend your money. I won't even use the word invest. It's a great way for you to spend your money in a way that I think will give you excellent value.
Right. Yeah, and again, if you buy it for a thought, just like you were saying, that thought's never going to go up or down in value. I mean, it's just the thought that matters behind the diamond. And and just like you said,
Yeah,
there.
let me just say this is
Go ahead.
not exactly why you invited me here, but it's a little bit of my pet peeve of mine because certainly in the talk radio world, there's this whole subset of people hawking gold coins and gold this and gold that.
You
And they
notice that
talk
too.
about it as if gold could only go up. And it's simply not true. The value of gold and silver can go up and down. So I don't believe you should buy those things necessarily as, or when it comes to jewelry, because you are convinced it's going to go up in value. I think you should buy it because you love it and you think the person that you're buying it for is going to love it and going to want to keep it forever and possibly even give it to future generations in the family. I think that's the main reason.
Definitely. And again, that as far as pet peeves go, that is a most justified one. And I think that just like the Federal Trade Commission and the whole having to label your diamonds, I mean that's happening in talk radio right now with the FCC and having to label your advertisements as advertisements, and those the places that just like you said, gold can only go up. Those are paid for by companies that trade exclusively in gold. So of course, everything you hear anywhere, grain of salt everywhere. But again, if you
Sure,
want,
and ask, try to get independent information. For
yeah,
example, I wouldn't ask your listeners to take my word for it on this whole issue of what's really going on in the environment. Look for this independent information from Frost and Sullivan. You can Google it, and they will tell you about the difference of the environmental sustainability and the impact on the environment of lab-grown diamonds versus mine diamonds. Don't take my word for it on these problems with blood diamonds and conflict diamonds. Go to Amnesty International, the well-known, respected nonprofit, and research on their site what they have to say about mine diamonds. And they have explicit details about how mine diamonds create huge problems with funding civil wars, tyrants, child labor, abusive labor practices,
absolutely.
children drowning from it. So your listeners need to get information from a wide variety of sources and figure out what makes the most sense for them and what's real.
And I think one of the best sources of information for our listeners out there today, um, and this is going to lead into maybe in their hometown, one of the best sources of information are, of course, your own eyes. And I think that's a pretty good segue into. You mentioned that there's a handy little tool again on PureGrownDiamonds.com. Find a store that has them available near you. Um, do you have any partnership with any chains that like you're guaranteed? And again, just picking a name random here, mostly because they're advertisement, whatever. But let's say you walk into a K or a Jared or a gallery, like whatever diamond, whatever jewelry store you go to. Do you have a partnership that you guarantee to find a lab grown diamond, or is it only through the tool on your website that you can find a store near you that shows them and that people can go in and kind of finger out themselves?
I mean, the good news is there is so much good publicity about this, and more people are hearing about it. We're getting inquiries every day from small stores and bigger stores. So I don't want to give out any information today saying we're not someplace when tomorrow we could be.
Okay.
The simplest thing, again, is to just ask a store that if you already have a relationship or you're already at the mall, ask them for it. And also go to the website, PureGrownDiamonds.com, because we're forming new relationships with jewelers all over the country every day because there's just more and more interest in this. People are compelled by the story. They're also compelled by the savings and the value. So it's just getting wider distribution. And beyond that, there's just more interest and demand for diamonds worldwide.
Lab grown diamonds, homegrown interest. I like it. I definitely like it. And so Yeah, TJ. I think we covered a lot of the pros, and obviously really covered what lab-grown diamonds have to offer people. Anything that we didn't touch on? We have about 5 minutes left. Anything that we didn't touch on, or anything that you kind of want to mention? Um, that we
I think
Yeah.
the main thing, if any of your listeners are thinking about making a major purchase for a big life event, and you're also trying to put your budget together, saying, how am I going to buy this diamond ring or this diamond bracelet and still pay for the honeymoon or vacation, and still pay for the down payment on a car, or and still pay the down payment for an apartment or a house, and you're looking to save and still get beautiful, high quality, this is an area where you can save money but not have to give up anything. You're actually gaining. So again, if you're to buy let's say a $5,000 1 carat mine diamond, you could get the same size and quality
Right.
for $3,000 with a lab grown diamond. So you've got a couple $1,000s more, and that'll pay for a couple of tickets round trip to Europe air flight if you're going there for your honeymoon.
Absolutely.
So that's an excellent option.
Absolutely. And again, just to be diamond clear, I guess. You have to purchase these through an approved retailer. Like you can't purchase the diamonds directly from your website.
You can go there too. Sure. You can check it out at PureGrownDiamonds.com, 3Ws.PureGrownDiamonds.com. You can see the diamonds there, get them there. You can also get them at a store right in your community too, either way.
Very, very cool. And again, we mentioned the yellow diamonds that are available. We mentioned the pink diamonds. Uh, Anything in the future
And
coming up?
also the traditional colorless ring
And
light.
of
That's
course
still the favorite for a lot of people.
definitely. And maybe plans in the future. And of course you mentioned of course coming to more stores where more people will have the opportunity to see them for themselves. But in the future, are you going for more colors? Are you going for bigger diamonds? I mean, where do you see pure grown diamonds going?
We're always innovating, we're always experimenting, we're always perfecting the technology, and most important, we're listening to our customers to find out what they want. So we anticipate it just broadening in scope and selection.
That is very, very good to hear for sure. And by the way, I went to the website. I went to the website. Went to the little tool you have, and there's one little place that's 13 miles from me. So maybe I'll go out after the show and check it out myself because, again,
Great,
yeah,
good. So it definitely works. And if you're talking about a significant investment for a lifetime, 13 miles isn't that far to go.
absolutely not. And again, if you maybe if you're driving, if you're at work, if you're somewhere in where you can't exactly grab a pen and pad, then computeramerica.com, it will have links to everything that we talked about here today. It will have links to puregrowndiamonds.com. It will have links to this show. If you're maybe tuning in late and you are just now getting here, then we will have this show in its entirety up on our website for the next about week, and then it heads off to the archives where it will be available forever. And yeah, TJ, I want to thank you for coming on. I know it was short notice, but I think it was a lot of good information, and of course, a really, really unique product that we've had on the show here. It's not every day you get to talk to someone who makes diamonds.
Thank you so much. Good to be with you. Appreciate time with your audience. Thanks again. Take care.
Thank you, and have a good one, TJ. Bye.
Bye.
All right. And yeah, there it goes. And again, that was puregrowndiamonds.com. I feel like we've said that about 50 different times during the interview, but obviously it's a subject that you need to see to believe, and not just see, but if you have a shop that is maybe within 25 or 50 miles of you, then maybe go in and take a look for yourself, because so many different things we've seen in our culture that's when technology comes in. He mentioned that it wasn't going to be that much of a disruptive force, but I don't know if I agree or disagree that when you create something in a lab, rather than having to mine it out of the ground, that's just going to be infinitely easier. And when it's something that's not just a lookalike, it's not going to fade with age. but rather it is a diamond, just again not pulled out of the ground, then that is something definitely worth checking out. So, with that being said, we have another couple minutes here. I guess we'll go through some of what we're doing next week and some of the things going on here behind the scenes over at ComputerAmerica.com. Yeah, if you go there, you'll notice that we're trying to switch up the format a little bit. Right now, it's a little text heavy. We're going to switch over to hopefully something a little bit more visually stimulating than just text, text, text. But it still has all the functionality that you need. It still has we actually found a way to embed the audio into each post. So if you want to hear the audio, if you want to watch the video, which again, let's be honest here, is strictly still just audio coming through the video portion, but that's going to be a much improved feature in the coming week, where we switch back over to our other software, and we're going to be able to show demonstrations, videos, people's websites, articles that we talk about. The video portion is going to be a lot of fun once we get that back up and running. And yeah, so we have that with Computer America. Behind the scenes, we're moving back up to our North Carolina office, and we're going to stay there for quite a long time. And yeah, hopefully everything starts settling out and Computer America gets back into its flow. I'll admit, ever since Craig, kind of got out of here with being sick, things have been a little rocky, but we hope to, of course, you know, smooth out the edges, smooth out the rough sides, and deliver upon to you I guess, a Ben grown Computer America. I don't know, lab grown, whatever. Uh, and with that being said, let's just say that in the next hour, speaking of guests, we have two guests today. And in the next hour, we will be talking to Mr. George Waller. He is the executive vice president for, for MobileTrust. And we're going to switch gears here a little bit as we move over to, I'm sorry, just doing some stuff behind the scenes here. There we go. And yeah, trying to connect to him now. And MobileTrust is a great way to protect everything that you have on your smartphone. This is, of course, a subdivision of Strikeforce Tech. They have a number of products that we're probably going to have time to get into uh, here on the Computer America show when we talk to George. And yeah, head on over to strikeforcetech.com, and right under the products page, Mobile Trust, which is again the main focus of what we're going to be doing today. And just a quick little insight here. Uh, Again, this is going to be the guest for next hour, but an estimated 16 million mobile devices have mobile malware, and of course, only continues to rise. Where MobileTrust is the most advanced security suite for mobile devices, with the power to protect your confidential information, online transaction, and login access against keylogging spyware. And it even helps you create and store hard to crack passwords, which is oh so important, because that's something that we advocate highly against, and that's making very, very simple passwords. Because I know it's so tempting and so easy to make a password that's just your initials, maybe three or four numbers, or just baseball one, football 1 2 3. I know it's so tempting just to have all of your passwords there, but when you do something like that, when you do something as silly as that, to put a word to it, you really do leave yourself open to a lot of heartache down the road. And of course, with that said, we will be talking to MobileTrust and more specifically Strikeforce in the next hour. Uh, yeah. So with that being said, uh, let's go over once again over maybe you're just joining us here on the show. Head on over to computeramerica.com, where you can see today's show, yesterday's show, all the shows up to about 10 days before they head off to the archive, and you can see what we've been up to. And of course, last 2 days we've had to do best of shows, but going forward, we hope to, of course, have much, much more interesting guests. And uh, let's just go over next week real quick while we have about a minute here before we get into it with our next guest. But next week we have, of course, Darius Derek-Shani. We have we have places like Next Advisor, which of course help you plan out all the finances and everything like that to make your next big purchase, be it a car, home, what have you. Just using technology to make sure that you are making those big purchases and doing it correctly is very, very important. And one of my favorite upcoming guests for next week, this was I actually received a press release from them, and I thought it was a really interesting idea that it was a band called Rocket Boat, and just a couple of guys band. Obviously, they haven't made it big yet, but I like the idea that they're making a they're making a video game where the entire game is scored by their new album, and they're going to be releasing the video game in tandem with their new album, hopefully to kind of make the game as a mobile advertisement for their album. And of course, the game itself is very well done and very, very entertaining. And yeah, I thought it'd be fun to have them on and talk about that, of course. So yeah, all again, check us out next week. We're gonna have a lot of great shows, and I hope all of you join us. And of course, the music means we have to take a just the slightest of the breaks as we switch from hour one to hour two, and of course, get into it with our guest, Mobile Trust. So stay tuned, and we have a whole nother hour of the Computer America Show.
Broadcasting live. It's the only national radio talk show on computers to air every weeknight. Computer America. Hosted by national columnist Craig Crossman. The first hour's behind us, but there's still more of tech news, tech talk, and your phone calls. We're being beamed nationwide at ComputerAmerica.com. You got computer problems? Bring them on. You're listening to Computer America. Computers run the world, and we run computers. Call us or send us an email to live@computeramerica.com.
Hello and welcome into hour two of the Computer America Show. I am your host, Ben Crossman. Craig Crossman is still out, so don't be freaked out by by what you hear here. But of course, we're gonna have a lot of fun. In the first hour, if you are just joining us now, we had lab-grown diamonds. We had a lot of great conversations with TJ Walker about everything to do with what it takes to grow diamonds in a lab, as well as the implications behind getting a diamond that is free of all the stigma, socially and economically, behind a diamond that you just pop into. He used the word microwave a couple times, so I'm just gonna what he said essentially is a microwave. Again, was able to make a perfect diamond, one not pulled out of the ground, but rather one created in a laboratory. It was a very fun hour, and you can definitely go check that out at computeramerica.com, where you can hear last hour and all the shows prior to that. But I think we should just jump into our second hour guest, because I think it's going to be really fun, where we talk to, again, it's MobileTrust. And yeah, I'm sorry, we have a MobileTrust here with us on the show, Mr. George Waller, and who is the executive vice president for Strikeforce, which is, of course, the the company behind MobileTrust. So let's introduce him on the show. And yeah, George, thanks for joining us here on Computer America. Hopefully you're doing well.
Thank you so much, Ben, and it's a pleasure to speak with you.
Perfect. Yeah, and of course, we're switching gears here from diamonds, and which are of course a luxury item, and something that on a good year you purchase once, and on an off year, not at all. But but of course, when we talk about something like Mobile Trust, this is something that we push on the show nightly, nightly, nightly. I mean, if it's not backup your data, it's make sure that you have the proper software in place to prevent malware, and prevent disruptions to your services. It's oh so important. So before we get into Mobile Trust in particular, why don't you tell us a little bit about Strikeforce, and how you guys kind of got into software development, and just where did you guys kind of come from?
Sure, I appreciate that, Ben. Well, Strikeforce, we're a 16-year-old company, and we are dedicated to making cybersecurity solutions that make sense, solutions that are affordable, solutions that are easily distributed for either a consumer or a corporation. And most of your listeners out there have probably actually used one of our technologies already. Most people today are banking online.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of folks that bank online, if they're not at their computer, they've went to their computer, let's say a friend's computer, they're over somewhere else, they're traveling, and they go to log in, and since they're not at their computer, the bank knows that their system sees it, and it will send a six-digit code to their phone. Most people have done that. A lot of companies are using sending that six-digit code to your phone. Well, we're actually the inventors of that process. So we started 16 years ago by building that. We were way ahead of the curve. They call it being out on the bleeding edge.
The
And about eight years or so ago,
hmm
the Gartner Group wrote a big article about us, how Strikeforce was on that leading edge with banks, and they were recommending that all banks and larger corporations should use our technology. Well, in that they started talking about the future, the landscape, how it was going to change and morph based on malware as we now know it. So the Gartner Group was very, very, very visionary in seeing this. And when we got off the phone, after that great article, we talked to them, and they told us how bad the industry, the world was going to get. And we realized that we needed to, we have this great technology for authentication and verification, but we really needed to take a look at this problem of malware. So we started on the PCs first, and we built a PC version of it. And essentially, we built the world's first keystroke encryption technology. So when you put it on your PC, either Windows or Apple, we encrypt each and every keystroke in real time. So we know that malware is going to get on there. What we do is we don't allow the malware to see your keystrokes by essentially encrypting them in real time and circumventing the normal process that the computer takes. Well, I'm very happy to say that we now came out with a mobile version of that. And just like the explosive growth of the computers were since let's say 1995 on, since the internet really came into its own, well, the growth of mobile. Do you know that in the last several years, there are more mobile phones on this earth, more smart devices than there are people?
I believe it.
And so what we did was we started looking at the problems on mobile phones and realizing that malware is now addressing phones. In fact, it's even easier to hijack a phone. It's easier to infect a phone, much easier than it is a computer. Computers been around for quite some time now, and while antivirus is somewhat good, decent on on desktops, there's practically no antivirus for mobile phones. And plus, in the iOS Apple world, they don't allow anyone to scan their kernel. So if you're infected, you'll never know. So what we did, Ben, is we looked at the problems of what everyone needs on a mobile device. And knowing that in the computer world, there's been basically a bundling of products over the years. People came out with password vaults. People came out with two-factor authentication. You had your antivirus out there, and so on. What we did was we looked at the mobile world, and we said we want to be able to address all of a person's problems with one program, and that's what MobileTrust is. It's a single program that gives you five key features, and all those features address a different either vulnerability or they are a convenience and security for you. So,
Yeah.
for example, we have a keystroke encrypted keyboard. So when you put MobileTrust on your phone, Apple or Android, smartphone or tablet, essentially it puts another keyboard on your phone. And when you're in any of your apps and you're typing on now the MobileTrust keyboard, MobileTrust actually encrypts the keystrokes right then and there and doesn't allow the operating system or any other malware that's sitting on your phone to see those keystrokes. So we figured it out.
Well,
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, just real quick, and that's definitely one way to get around the malware is that if it infects, of course, your operating system, it needs to get as low level as it possibly can. But I guess if you have MobileTrust, of course, and it goes directly to the app, I mean that must have been a pain in the neck to to really develop, to develop really a keyboard that input methods are pretty basic levels of of an operating system. Um, I mean that like was it easy to get to get all apps to really work with your MobileTrust keyboard? Because I can see how there are so many apps and so many different programs out there that that must have been a headache somewhere along the road.
Yes, it was a headache. We introduced this about a year ago and a year and a half ago. And yes, you're absolutely right. It took us several years to build this. It was, even though we had the knowledge and the expertise and the subject matter experts on staff of building keystroke encryption because we did on the PCs, but driving it down in the mobile world was a challenge. Now, one thing about Mobile Trust, so it works with any app that accepts a third party keyboard. Now, just about every app does today. Now, a year and a half ago, only about half the apps allowed for a third party keyboard to be used. But today, I haven't seen an app in the last 6 months that doesn't allow a third party keyboard to work with it. So, we built the mechanism, and as long as the app allows a third party keyboard to interface to it, then our keyboard can be chosen to encrypt. And our keyboard knows the next time you pull up that app that you use our keyboard for it, and it will always come back up first.
Makes
And it
yeah,
shows you right on the app too, and it even says secure keyboard across the top.
that that is just really really cool technology. And again, um, we keep talking about malware on the phone, and I've of course, and kind of dual wielding phones at the moment. I have a business phone and a personal phone. It's kind of hard to keep track of everything, but at the same time, I'm visiting websites, I'm doing mobile banking, and sometimes I even get lazy, and I just pull out my web browser out of my phone, and just kind of do online banking as if I was sitting in front
Hmm.
of a computer. Um,
Yep.
I mean, where do people get infected with malware on their phones? Is it a random application that they shouldn't have installed, or is it like on a normal computer with a random banner ad? I mean, where are people getting infected with malware?
It's it, it's Ben. It's those ways and many many more. You can just simply, just like on a PC, you can go to a site, a drive-by site. So the site has already been mal-faced. So just by going to that site, you don't even have to click on anything. Your device gets infected. And so imagine, and by the way, you can go to a very legitimate link, a very legitimate site that's been mal-faced, and it instantly infects your device, and that's a problem. Links can bring you over there. APKs, for example, one of the things that the hackers love to do, especially on the Android side, is that the stores, they're trying to vet everything that they can, right? But in Android specifically, there's really no control over the digital certs. So essentially, if I'm a hacker, because Android just asks you to self-certify,
Hmm.
self-sign the cert. So basically, I could basically hack your cert, then I could insert malware and then re-sign the cert and put the application up in the store. Not and there's even more sophisticated ones than that. For example, um, you can you can put a piece of malware. Now, if I'm gonna liken it to a postal service, right? You can take, imagine if you sent a spring to in the postal service, right, in a box, and to some address, and then tomorrow you send a clock, and the next day you send something else, a piece of wire, and so on.
Hmm.
Well, no one would ever catch those as being nefarious, right? Because it's a spring or a clock or whatever. But when they get to the other side, all of a sudden they can, someone there could assemble them. Well, the same thing happens in the stores. Apple and Android, they do a good job at checking these things out. However, if you're a malware writer, you know what you do? You create a little game out there, something that someone pulls down, a flashlight or whatever, and you put something in it, right? Meanwhile, tomorrow you do an update. Apple will check that update, but they don't check what happens once the update gets in
Mm.
and verifies that it hasn't morphed the program into now something malicious. because you can continuously, everyone continuously updates their software.
Well,
So
yeah,
you can just assemble.
I mean, it's not just that everyone kind of does it. It's that Apple will pull it down if people do not continuously update. So even if even if they really don't have any
Correct.
normal updates, then they still have to put something out.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So that software will morph at a certain point. The last component you send up there is basically an assembler, right? And the instructions, and of course you put a command and control in there as well. So now you assemble it, and then you say, all right, here's what you kick it off, and you look at some of the ones like the stage fright malware
Hmm.
or the Kamaj malware, or the Badu Mopus SDK, the Santa Claus malware, Slembunk, is specifically going after credentials, stealing credentials. So all of these types of malwares are triggered by, obviously a malware writer, hacker, put them out there. He got the person to either download a program, go to a link, click on an SMS, right, link, and listen, we're all busy today, and we click on something because someone told us, watch this video, but we don't know that they've been clicked, that they've been hacked. So I go watch that video, and now my device is malfaced. And like you said in the early part of your, you know, when you're signing on,
Right.
16 million devices are already malfaced out there today, and there's more. I mean, 97% of the top paid Android apps have already been broken. 87% of iOS have already been hacked.
Yeah, and of course, it's one of those things that when something gets popular, you of course make yourself a bigger target. So even the even the big applications that haven't been breached yet, they're obviously a target and obviously a very desired target to inject malware inside of them. So you're saying that avoiding malware and just saying, okay, I'm going to not click on anything. I'm going to keep my applications very very sterile. You're saying that even that's not enough, and so you think that MobileTrust, of course, is something that, like, is this a kind of after the fact? Well, I'm infected, so now I need to kind of clean my phone, and MobileTrust is going to help me do it, or is MobileTrust something that preventative, make sure it never happens in the first place? Just use MobileTrust. Is it reactive or proactive?
It's a proactive solution, and it's a prevention software. So what we do is as I said before, there are 5 components of it. The first one and the most important of the 5 is the encrypted keyboard, because nobody, whether you're on a PC or you're on a mobile device, nobody can prevent malware from getting on a device. We're all going to get infected at one point in time. James Comey, the FBI director,
Hmm.
said 2 profound things in the last 6 months. He said 97%, the FBI estimates that 97% of the U.S. computers have some sort of malware on it. And he said that there's 2 types of people and companies in the United States: those that know they've been breached, those that don't know they've been breached yet. So for us, that keyboard is essential, because the malware writer is going to put a keylogger on your mobile device, and he's going to watch each and every keystroke, because that's how they profit by what you're typing. When you're logging into your bank, when you're putting your credit card numbers in there, when you're filling out an online form and you're putting in your social security number, your date of birth, and and all your other pertinent private or sensitive or corporate information. The other thing we do is, what you were saying is, sometimes you use your phone as just a browser, right?
Right.
Well, that browser, the standard browser on the phones, both on Apple and Android, they're the problem is those browsers are not hardened. All right, that you have all these tabs, and because of that, they're not built with in a sandbox,
Hmm.
and because of that, you can easily subvert that browser and infect that browser. So the second thing that we put into MobileTrust is a hardened, secure browser that won't allow for an SQL injection, won't allow for someone to tamper with the browser when, for example, if you go to a malface site, we're not going to allow that malware to reverse it way down, look at an exploit on the browser, then come back down through the browser onto your mobile device. So the browser, the hardened browser, is the second thing. The next thing we did, Ben, is we put a password vault in there, and it's an encrypted password vault that stores unlimited number of passwords. So you can associate a username with a password with a location, a website. We also put in there a password generator, as you were saying early on, right before you signed me on, about how companies and organizations ask you to make stronger passwords, more letters, more characters, more
Right.
and upper and lower case. We actually put a utility in there that will create, and there are 8 user definable options on it, and we can actually create one for you and then store it in the encrypted vault. And then finally, the fifth feature is that everyone today is encouraged, when you go to Facebook or Twitter, any of those sites, they all encourage you to sign up and use two-factor authentication. But with that, you have to go and get it, right? You still need to go and get the authenticator.
Right.
There are free ones out there. There's other ones out there. What we did was we actually built a authenticator, two-factor OTP, one-time passcode generator, and put it in there for you, so that when you go to that site, you could register for the first time, register your device with that site. Now it knows when you're going to go log in to Twitter or Facebook, it'll ask you, Ben, what's your username, what's your password, and what's your token number. Right on the phone, you have that token generator. So now you can now have two-factor authentication that you're providing for yourself.
Yeah,
and that's very important.
definitely, and you went over quite a bit there, and I think we're going to maybe break those down a little bit further. But one thing that, of course, like you said, I mentioned at the beginning, and again, it's not the easiest thing to do. Like, it's not just, oh, just make more complex passwords. It's also the fact that when you make more complex passwords, um, I know I've done it. I know many of my friends have done it. It's just harder to remember. And like you said, a secure password vault, we recommend here on Computer America, and we have had them on the show, many different password managers, for your browser. But for phones, I mean, I've always kind of left it up to the browser, which, the more you and I talk, the more I realize, my phone's probably a pretty good target. So hopefully that doesn't come back to bite me anytime soon. But yeah, what does your password vault do? Can you use it just like a password manager where it will?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, some people, it is. It's a, you know, we're still, it's a password manager. I typically call on the box, on the software, on the website, it says password manager. I call it a password vault. So
Right.
I apologize for that.
Oh, no
But
problem.
it's a password manager. It allows you to basically create, that strong, we got the strong password generator, and then puts it into the password manager. Now, the one thing about a password manager, and this is one thing that not any other password manager for either PC or mobile device has. All right, we're the only ones in the world with it. Is our passwords, when you type on our keyboard, you're encrypting everything you type into the password manager. See, we carry it in encrypted. When these other password managers out there, and I'm not going to mention their names, we all know who they are, but every one of them have had, just about every one of them had data breaches. And the problem with a password manager in general is that if you have a keylogger on your PC or mobile device, and you're typing in, I'm going to say, this is my Gmail password. I have a keylogger on it. Guess what? The password goes into the password manager, but it doesn't matter. It's stolen. So what
Right.
is a password manager if you're not encrypting the data at the point of origin when you're typing on your keyboard or swiping on your keyboard, so that the data goes into the application encrypted? And we're the only ones in the world that can do that, because that's our patents.
Right.
That's the technology that we invented.
And I guess, of course, that is what gives you the the highly touted military grade anti-key logging, is that when it's just that instantaneous, it's all done at the point of entry, rather than going through the operating system, and then, of course, having to do all that good, all the happy stuff. Military grade, that's kind of the stuff that you want on your phone. And yeah, so MobileTrust, and I think we said it in a very roundabout way, but why don't we just kind of say it flat out. um, compared to antivirus software, I mean, this is going to prevent, like, even if you get malware, this is going to prevent malware from even affecting, stealing your passwords and whatnot. But how does this, actually compare to antivirus?
Well, well, uh, so on the mobile device, first of all, there's no antivirus that can scan the kernel of your iOS. There is no such, Apple doesn't allow it. And in antivirus, remember how antivirus works, whether it's heuristic, signature, or behavioral, it needs to first know what the infection is in order to be able to stop it. It needs to know the behavior of it in order to be able to stop it. So your antivirus, when you turn your phone on every day and it does an update, dials up to the mothership, whichever one you're using,
Right.
it gets a list of all the latest bad guys, right? But the bad guys, you know, but guess what? In the last year, there were 450 million new malware variants put on the internet. And do you know what? Do you know what the best of all the antivirus companies, how many signatures they actually carry
Uh,
inside catalog?
I'm
About
betting less than
19 million.
450. Yeah, 19 million.
19 million. And a 0 day is when you're going to build something brand new and introduce it, and no one can stop it. So that's why, and no antivirus in the world can stop a 0 day. So that's why having proactive prevention by, we understand that your device is going to get infected. What we do is we understand, we changed the paradigm by saying, we know Ben's mobile phone is going to get infected. What are the hackers doing? They want to grab his keystrokes. So what did we do? We redesigned how you type onto we built a keyboard and we redesigned the process in which data flows from your keyboard to the application through the operating system. And essentially, we changed that whole process up by you're typing on our keyboard. We carry that data encrypted and we basically bind directly to the app and we don't allow the data to go through the operating system. And you know what that means? It doesn't get seen by keyloggers.
Right.
It means it doesn't get cached by the keyboard cache files. It doesn't sit in data dictionaries. And those are the things that you need to protect because all of those are areas of vulnerability.
Definitely, definitely. And again, I guess I just like being clear, but I know that I use a lot of text messaging services. Text messaging just plain, and then there's like the Apple Messenger, whatever you want to call that. I also use half a dozen other kind of texting services. Kik, WhatsApp, what have you. Um, let's say that you are using, of course, MobileTrust to input information, or to input text into one of these third-party applications. I mean, if they get hacked, I mean, it definitely can't protect your what you're typing from their servers, can it? Like, it still goes through their servers.
No,
Yeah,
no,
right.
no, no.
Okay.
That's still a vulnerability that exists out there because our keystroke encryption, it basically encrypts at the point of origin. We bring it to the app and then we hand it off.
Right.
So, and then most of these apps, WhatsApp and others, they have built-in encryption and they carry it across the internet to the other side encrypted. See, it was the last mile, which was the open part, which was the vulnerable point. Data before SSL and TLS came out, right? Data used to fly around the internet, in clear text. Essentially, the hackers started hacking that. Then what happened? The good guys made, SSL. And then the hackers started going after that. So what did the good guys do? They made SSL. So then the hackers went below the SSL and said, we're going to get the data as it goes up the data stack before it ever gets into the SSL session. And so what the good guys, what we did is we looked at it and said, okay, they're grabbing the data in the data stack after the keystroke, but before the application, because there's a couple of handoffs there, right?
Right.
There are process handoffs like the message filters, message drivers, stuff like that. So they're embedding and they're watching those keystrokes as they go through the operating system and through those different processes. And we realized that those points in that data stack were the vulnerable points, and any keylogger in there has access to anything that you're typing. So what did we do? We basically changed the paradigm by saying, all right, you know what, data going through the data stack is dangerous. So what we had to do is we basically rewrote how that process works. And so when you type, you're no longer typing into the operating system in the keyboard because that could be infected. And so here, when you're typing into our encryption directly. Well, you see it as, and just so you know, Ben, you see it as a keyboard, right? You know,
Right.
QWERTY keyboard. It's actually, you're typing directly into an encryption technology. And then we encrypt it instantly, and then we basically subvert the operating system, and we basically tunnel directly and bind to the app. So we don't allow the data to be picked up by data dictionaries or keyboard cache files.
No, and trust me, when we say here at Computer America that we're 25 years running, we've been around for a while, and we've heard a lot of different techniques, and what you're describing, uh, we haven't heard from any of the other antivirus or any anti-malware. So definitely very interesting to have you on, George. And the music means we're going to take a little break. We're going to come back. We have a lot more to talk about with you. So if you just hang around for a couple of minutes, George, we'll
Sure.
talk about more.
Absolutely.
Perfect. All right, and for everyone else, we have a social media winner of the week coming up in right after the break. So stick around for that as well.
Hi, this is Craig Crossman, host of the Computer America Show. You have important meetings to schedule. Your company's getting ready for its IPO, and you're in charge of the PTA fundraiser this month. So how do you coordinate everyone to be available at the same time? Are you still using emails, phone calls, even text messages to schedule meetings with a group of people? How's that working out for you? Not so great, huh? It's a fact that every day, millions of people suffer from scheduling headaches. Well, with Doodle, scheduling meetings with a group of people is quick and easy. With Doodle, you can easily propose available times to each member. Each one checks off the times that they are available, and then you simply pick the time that works best for the group, all in an easy-to-read display that integrates with your existing calendar. Nothing could be more simple. Give Doodle a try for free, and like millions of Doodle users, you'll truly see how easy it is to find the perfect date and time for all your meetings. That's www.doodle.com. Looking for a best friend? Brother Wolf Animal Rescue has your best friend waiting just for you. The mission of Brother Wolf Animal Rescue is to help build a sustainable, no-kill community where no dogs or cats are ever killed for population control, where true euthanasia is reserved only for animals who are irremediably suffering or for animals who are truly a threat to society and with no hope of rehabilitation. Brother Wolf staff and volunteers go door to door, neighborhood by neighborhood, to educate citizens about local resources available for at-risk pets and to help their families connect with those resources. Brother Wolf's community-based approach to no-kill helps keep family pets healthy, happy, and in their homes and out of the local shelter system in the first place. For more information or to make a tax-deductible donation to this wonderful 501c3 organization, visit their website at www.bwar.org. Help to realize Brother Wolf's vision when no animal is euthanized for lack of a home.
Who's a good boy?
Sorry, gender-neutral connectors just can't be AC/DC. Marty Winston with a news tips bulletin review for Computer America. This time, the Intermatic dual-tech motion sensor. It looks a little like a smoke alarm, but it really houses a PIR, that's passive infrared motion sensor, that can cover 1,600 square feet, plus an ultrasonic motion sensor that can cover 1,000 square feet, plus an ambient light sensor, and you have ways to adjust the sensitivity of all three. It's made for wiring into AC power and selectively powering a load like a light or a motor when either or both you choose of the motion sensor's triggers and when the ambient light level you set is appropriate. You can also set between 5 seconds and half an hour how long the load remains powered when it triggers. So bottom line, the Intermatic dual-tech motion sensor can bring automation to any room, battery-free. Marty Winston, News Tips Bulletin for Computer America.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is 30 minutes past the hour as we continue on here. And again, in the second hour here, we are talking to MobileTrust. And more specifically, we are talking to George Waller, who is the Executive Vice President And before we get back to George, I just want to take a quick minute that our friends over at Logitech, we're putting some other stuff together behind the scenes, but for the moment, we are indeed still going strong with our social media winner of the week. And so this is when, uh, you know, again, go to computeramerica.com and you will find everything you need to know, first of all, about the show, but also about all the different places you can find us on social media. So be it YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and other similar places. If you find Computer America there, just like whack-a-mole, hit the like button, hit the subscribe, just any way that you could follow us and help support the show. You will be rewarded with an entry into our contest where we choose one lucky listener from one of our social media venues, and yeah, we give them a great prize just for helping out and just for listening to the show. And again, this is provided by Logitech, and we are giving away the Bluetooth M535 mouse. It's a great mobile mouse that if you're on the go, if you're traveling, very light, very compact. And again, I'm pretty sure it has about a 2-year lifespan on one charge. So, very, very impressive. And if you are, on the go a lot, or, you just need something to throw in your pocket, again, we cannot recommend the M535 highly enough. It's a very, very cool product. And we got to pick that one out of a number of them because we thought it was so great. And again, we have a drum roll. I don't know where on Craig's soundboard. Oh, here it is. All right. So let's put on the drum roll just like that. Very nice drum roll. And today's winner, or this week's social media winner of the week is, well, we're just gonna stop that without the actual finale there. But yeah, this week's winner is Merle Hester. Yay, Merle. And Merle Hester, he listens to us from Star City, Arizona. And Merle, thank you for listening to us. He does not have a note here, but that's okay. You do not need to kind of leave any comments or any posts on the wall. You just have to again, subscribe to us, and bing bang boom, you're entered win. So Merle, we are going to send your information off to Logitech, and they will contact you shortly and get that prize out to you. And thank you again so much for listening to Computer America. And because you're still listening to Computer America, we continue on once again with MobileTrust and George Waller. Once again, thanks for sticking with us, George. And yeah, now I'm going to ask you a question that is kind of a follow up to where we kind of left off before the break, and that is, as the executive vice president of course, MobileTrust and Strikeforce, we've been talking a lot about this, this keyboard that your company has developed, and keyboards. The iOS 10 update was just released. How good is your application's keyboards? Because keyboards change a lot, and people always prefer their own. Do you think MobileTrust keyboard is a good virtual keyboard?
I think MobileTrust keyboard is a great keyboard. Now, with that said, we constantly are talking with our customers and users and asking them for feedback, and we take feedback very seriously. And like one of the feedback someone said to us a couple months ago was, "Hey, we love that if you could add, for example, a microphone in it. We love if you could add the .com. You know how some of the keyboards have the .com and then the @ sign based
Right.
on if you're in a URL or not." So what we've been doing is when we get those requests, if they make sense, I put the resources, the development resources behind it, and we go ahead and make those changes. We want that keyboard to be the most friendliest keyboard that you would ever want to use, because it has all the latest features and functions, and you have you have the security of knowing that everything you're doing is encrypted. So we take the keyboard very seriously, as well as everything, all the other, 4 other features in it. But since it is about the keystroke encryption, that keyboard is super important to us.
Definitely. And I like how people would just kind of offhandedly mention it'd be really nice to have a microphone in there. And I'm sure your tech guys behind the scenes go, well,
Yep.
that's 3 months, that we're gonna have to work on that. So, like it's very easy to
Not
recommend.
that long. Hopefully not that long, but Usually it's a couple weeks
Right.
to, for each new feature.
Right. Well, again, I'm just saying that they recommend something that they think is very easy and that you should do. And of course, I'm sure when you are creating anti-malware, just like you're doing, or at least kind of anti-keylogging, what is simple is actually can probably prove to be quite a difficult thing to implement. But again, it seems like you really have it. And let's just kind of go into Apple and iOS, of course. I'm sorry, Apple and iOS, iOS and Android, of course, works on both platforms.
Yes, sir.
Perfect.
Yes, sir.
And
On all smartphones, any Apple or Android. And if your listeners are out there and if someone has their own app, and we've had this request several times. So we've had where someone had their own app and they said, wow, we have an app, a very specific app. Can we also get some of the components like your encrypted keyboard to work within our app? We actually also have an SDK for that as well.
very, very cool. So yeah, so they can meet you halfway and kind of work from the app side and make sure that they are kind of ready to receive anything that their customers could be sending. That's very nice.
Exactly.
Very nice.
Yeah, it's so. I mean, our mission has not changed in the last 16 years, which is to make the world a safer place for people to compute, and regardless if that's a desktop or a laptop or a mobile device.
Oh yeah, and now that you mentioned that actually, I had a question earlier about you talked to. I'm sorry, I'm reading the publication that kind of touted what you guys are doing and how bad things are going to get in 8 years. I mean, 8 years is a massive amount of time when you talk about technology. Like let's say 16 or 18 months ago, ransomware was in its infancy, and nowadays ransomware is like the number one form of malware out on the market, or at least out in the wild. Um,
hmm
let's say they said they had a prediction 8 years ago. How close were they? Did the
The prediction
yeah, go ahead.
blew their estimate away. Yeah, because I mean, Gartner's prediction, they were talking about the banking industry specifically. They were writing a research note, but no one could have ever imagined 8 years ago that in the first, in 2015, they found 450 million malware variants. Think about that. That's more than Ben. That's more than a million a day.
Yeah.
And now, listen, there's a lot of hackers out there, but what a lot of these hackers have done is they've actually wrote their own software programs that create malware variants all day long. So they got these little robots working for them all day long. So it keeps the good guys extremely busy when there's more than a million new malware variants a day.
Yeah, and again, it doesn't take much to make a new a new strain of malware where you change a little file here, a little file there, and
hmm
just the very literal and technical nature of malware and in computers, just that little tweak could make it a completely unfound virus for a lot of different programs out there. So obviously something
Yep.
that something like MobileTrust where it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter because you are, like you said, circumventing the place where malware likes to live. Then, it like MobileTrust. Is there a subscription? Because I was just thinking about it and I was like, well, if it doesn't matter and you don't have to update constantly with with new definitions, if you don't have to constantly kind of look for ways that hackers are trying to circumvent your technology, is MobileTrust a subscription based or is it one time thing and for each phone?
It is. It's a subscription base, and it goes by per device.
Right.
And for example, a consumer they could buy MobileTrust for 19 the one time I'm sorry, for a low cost of 19.95
Mm-hmm.
for a single device, and then they can get two devices for 29.95,
And then I'm sure
and that is
for
on an annual basis.
right. And I'm sure for obviously you said that you got your start in creating the two-factor authentication for banks and stuff like that. So obviously there's a corporate side to this where if you want 100 licenses, if you want 1,000, whatever the large number of licenses you need, I'm sure Strikeforce will be more than happy to work with maybe any of our listeners or anyone out there who needs more than one or two.
Absolutely, and that's a great point, Ben. Yeah, we have a sliding scale. We have a published price list with a sliding scale on it, so that it's like anything. If you buy 10, you're going to get a better price than if you buy one. If you buy 1,000, you get a better price if you buy 10. We do have a sliding scale, and I mean, for depending on the nature of the organization, how many copies, you know, we've it's gotten very, very, very low.
And of course that's what you want to hear when you have 1,000 phones to protect, and of course 1,000 points of entry for malware into your servers. That is what you want to hear. Is that, well, it's not going to cost an arm and a leg just to protect our information. So and we George, we have about another 10 minutes here. Obviously you said that you got your start in with basic computers, and smartphones, like you said, they now outnumber humans. So if they take over the world, we are doomed. But home computers, people are still using them every single, like I know I use my computer every single day. Is there a non-mobile version of this product that works with desktops?
Yes, and that's actually the first version of it that we made was because 8 years ago there wasn't a lot of mobile phones,
Right.
and that's called Guarded ID. And with Guarded ID, essentially, obviously because there are several components of it. There's a keyboard driver. And Guarded ID, once you put it onto your PC or Mac, it automatically encrypts anything you type in on your computer, desktop or laptop. It encrypts everything that you type on your computer, regardless of which application you're in. So it's not, third-party application dependent, because you're now on a physical keyboard. And we support the PS2 keyboards. We support the USB keyboards, the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth keyboards. And not only does it encrypt everything, it actually starts encrypting as soon as you turn the power button on.
Very cool. Very, very cool.
The first two things you type is your username and password. We're encrypting those login credentials. And then no matter what you're doing on that computer, we're encrypting from the keyboard to the application.
Now, and I guess performance is always a question whenever you have any kind of antivirus. Like I remember, I may sound like a 12-year-old, but I promise I was around in the very, very early days of anti-malware and virus and all that good stuff. And sometimes there was a huge hit to performance. Luckily, not so much lately. But when you talk about encrypting every single input from a keyboard, from a user, is there any kind of like noticeable lag between, let's say you're typing up a Word document, you have 5 pages to go, and are you going to notice any kind of discernible lag between the keystroke to something appearing on your screen?
That's a great question. And the answer is no. You would never notice any latency in typing, because what Guarded ID does, similar to MobileTrust, but what it does is it encrypts each and every keystroke, and then its process is waiting for the next keystroke and next keystroke. It's not like we, buffer, let's say, 3 pages of documents of text, and then while you see the little hourglass working,
Mm-hmm.
we don't use encryption in that style. So we encrypt as you type. We're encrypting. And the way with these computers today, and I demonstrate this every day, I pull up a keylogger, I pull up a Word doc, and then I say to someone, here, push your finger on the A button, and watch how fast we're encrypting, carrying, decrypting, and then we're also doing an anti-screen scraping on your desktop as well at the very same time. So, and when you hold your finger on a key, you expect this, on a keyboard, you expect to see that keyboard shoot across with letters. And with our technology on that, you don't see any latency to what you normally would see.
Very cool. And of course, that's what you want. You want something that will protect you and something that, of course, improves security. But I think it is the antithesis to security is inconvenience, and that's why people make simple.
Absolutely.
That's why people make simple passwords. That's why people have unsafe browsing habits. Is that they want what they want, and they want it immediately. So having to wait for a character keystroke, very very important.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
You would never notice the difference. And you said something important just a second ago. Passwords. There are people out there. So we have a password vault on the mobile phone. We do plan on building one for the on the desktop.
Right.
But right now there are a lot of your users using password vaults out there. And I would tell each of them, please look at our site and take a look at the software guarded ID. You should never ever type in your password without that password being encrypted, especially the master password into a password vault. Because if I could watch you type your master password, then essentially I could steal every password in your password vault.
That has always been and of course it's always been the risk of password managers, password vaults, is that if
Yep.
you have all your if you have all your passwords in one place, then instead of them having to figure out 15 or so passwords, they just have to get that one master password, and then you are, I can't say that word on the air,
Toast.
and not a good, yeah, toast, thank you, toast, that is a good word. Yeah, no, it's always been a trouble, but no, but password vaults and managers, they're definitely something. You even said yourself that you're looking to build for, for the desktop. There's still something that we recommend. It's just use them safely, of course.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree.
right. So, and George, let's see. We mentioned the whole sliding scale thing and how you can be deployed for larger workforces. Obviously we're more consumer based here, but there are instances where maybe for your company, maybe for some kind of organization you're helping. Um, how do you help your biggest clients protect their data? Because when you have one person, you have to worry about one person, but when you have 1,000 employees or 100 employees or 10 or 10 coworkers, then you have 10 points of entry, and you can't monitor that
Hmm.
alone.
Right. As what we've done is, from a very holistic perspective, we've built two technologies. We have authentication and we have keystroke encryption. That's at the 30,000 foot level. If you think about every company, the four most vulnerable areas are when people are logging in remotely, because that's what the hackers do, right? They're getting someone's credentials and they're logging in, and for that we have we're the inventors of out of band authentication, where if I go to log into my VPN right now, I
Hmm.
pull up my VPN client, I'll put in my username, password, hit the login, and 1 second later my phone rings, but then I authenticate via my phone and I send my credential back over the phone network. So essentially, we're the inventors of creating two-channel authentication, multi-channel authentication. That's us. So for protecting network access, we have our authentication. Then for protecting the desktop from malware, specifically keyloggers, if you look at all the big breaches of lately, from OPM to Target of a couple of years ago, to Sony's, to Chases and JP Morgans and Citibanks and Home Depot, all of those, they were all due to a keylogger. Every
Yeah.
one of them were a result of keyloggers. So we have our anti-keylogging, our keystroke encryption for the purpose of anti-keylogging for the desktop. Then we have a MobileTrust for the mobile devices, because today, especially in the network, 99% of employers allow their employees to use their mobile phone, their personal mobile phone, for business usage. Well, guess what? But you also have all that corporate data there. So you got to lock down that corporate data with keystroke encryption. So we have that. And then for those companies that also have their own mobile apps, and like you said earlier, Ben, where they want to protect the data that's being input into that mobile app, we have our MobileTrust SDK. So essentially, we protect the network, the desktop, the mobile device, and the mobile app.
Trying to plug all those holes that could be a problem, and that's obviously very very important, because it's not just a one trick thing to security. It's obviously thinking like a hacker. It's thinking about where are the points of vulnerability and how do we protect those. So Sounds like you have a lot of bases covered. Any success stories that you can kind of share with the listeners? Maybe personal ones, or corporations that kind of came back and said, you know, because of you, we haven't, we haven't had to deal with as many, kind of breaches. Any kind of stories?
Well, most of our contracts are, most of our clients are contracted with us where we're not allowed to discuss the name, because that's the new standard in cybersecurity today. You don't even want them to know what you're using.
Right.
But we've deployed our technology out to a couple of customers. One of them was for our desktop software for over seven, it was pretty close to over 7 million of their users. And they actually, they saw our software. They wanted it so much they went out and told someone else, you need to build this in, because they were putting something on their computers. So we've had many success stories where people have gone, come to us and others saying, we need to have this. We need to protect, the desktop. We need to protect the mobile device. We need to protect access control to the network. So we have many stories. Our website shows a lot of case studies of how companies, universities, hospitals, banks, all the places that are, under the, in the bullseye of the target right now, they're all deploying our software, or multiple components of our software. But it's the consumers that I'm really concerned about, because they don't have the IT staffs. And we're all busy as consumers, and we're running around, and we don't have necessarily someone dedicated to telling us what we should be using, where, and how. So it's those consumers that are of my biggest concern, because they don't know where to turn to, and being able to share our knowledge and experience with them is so important, and we appreciate the opportunity through shows like yours.
Oh yeah, no, and we love having you on because our audience is always excited about new technology and excited to hear about things that, of course, keep them safer, but of course, things that they can take to their friends and say, "Hey, guess what I heard?" And and I think Strikeforce and really MobileTrust and all these other things, that's right up what we do. So yeah, in like the last 2 minutes that we have here with you, George. What is next for Strikeforce? Because like you said, 16 years in business, you guys obviously have to keep thinking about what's next, not what have
Yep.
you done.
Well, we are so in our authentication, we're adding in. Today, we offer out in our authentication technology about 16 different methods, ways of authenticating. And so now we're adding additional security features and capabilities like iris, authentication, and we'll layer into our technology anything that's commercially available. Even if it's not, we'll build it.
Whoa.
Um,
Real quick, did you say iris, like the eye, your eyeball?
Yeah. Where you'll be able to use your camera to look inside the iris, because the iris has, is 3D.
Right.
It's multidimensional. It's got height, width, and depth. So technology is available to look into the iris to really do a better biometric scan than, let's say, a fingerprint, because fingerprint technology, while good, but two in every 5,000 people have the same exact fingerprint.
Really?
But it's not that they
Huh,
actually.
fun
Yeah,
fact.
but here's the thing. When I say that, everyone says the exact same thing. Really, it's not that two people in every 5,000 have the same. It's just that the fingerprint scanners they use today take a very small sector, and they put points of distinction in there.
Hmm.
So because that they have to make a fingerprint reader for the whole world, right?
Right.
So what happens is that if you had a bigger scan area, you could put more points of distinction, further defining that this person isn't that person. But when you got a small spot like just the center of a thumb, well, guess what? You can only have so many points of distinction. That means there's a greater possibility that multiple people on via the fingerprint reader will have the same fingerprint, even though if you expanded that out a little bit, it would be different. Well, we are looking into more forms of authentication to add on to our 18 already. You said something near and dear to my heart before. You talked about ransomware. Our CTO comes from Bell Labs. Belcor, worked for the government, CSC for a while, a government contractor, and he's a genius.
90
He's the guy that built
seconds.
all of our technologies, our out of band, our keystroke encryption, and we've got a version of anti-ransomware running in here that we still have to do some work to it, license manager, stuff like that into it, but he just like he built keystroke encryption and out of band authentication, he realized that there is another way of preventing this stuff. He has figured out how to stop ransomware.
Perfect.
60 seconds.
And with that, George, I mean, great hour with you. Thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully all of our listeners definitely enjoyed that. George, we hope to have you back. We hope to have you back again when you release something new. Please feel free to contact us and come back on the Computer America Show. This was a lot of fun.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, and have a good weekend. Bye, George. And for all of our listeners out there, again, from Computer America, hopefully you have a wonderful weekend. Maybe go catch a movie. Maybe go, maybe go do something fun. Just relax. It's the holidays are almost here. That's going to be very, very exhausting. There's going to be a lot of food. Maybe get some pre-workout in. It's going to be good for you. But Computer America will be back Monday, bright and early. It's called 3 p.m. early, with brand new shows and brand new guests all week long. We look forward to doing it for you. And yeah, join us again on Monday. Have a good weekend, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
And for everyone out there on our Google Hangouts, thank you for joining us here. Google Hangouts has kind of taken a back seat as we figure some things out here in the foreground. But going forward, Google Hangouts will become a bigger and bigger part of Computer America, and we hope to make it a much more enjoyable form of watching the Computer America show. So keep an eye out here, and maybe a little teaser for everyone who stuck around for kind of like the Pixar after the credits little scenes. Also keep an eye out on Facebook, because we are hoping to bring the Computer America show to Facebook Live, and that's going to be a lot of fun as well. So everyone out there, have a great weekend, and hopefully you enjoyed today's show. I know I really did. And yeah, thank you for joining us. Bye, everyone.